Welcome, everyone. Today we're diving deep into Squid Game. This show, man, it really blew up. Everyone was talking about it,
Yeah, it definitely took the world by storm.
that's for sure. And we've got this great critique someone sent in, and it gets into some really cool stuff.
I'm excited to get into it.
Me too.
Okay.
We're going to be looking at the brutality, the characters, all that, and how it all comes together to be this, heavy social commentary.
Right, exactly, yeah.
So to start off, the premise itself is so simple. You've got these people playing, deadly children's games
Right.
for a huge cash prize.
And you know what? It's like the show uses that to hold up this warped mirror to our society.
Well, that's a good way to put it.
It shows all our anxieties about money, about economic disparity, about how far people will go when they feel trapped.
Yeah, it makes you think about how competitive we all are. Are we all just playing a less deadly version of Squid Game every day?
Right, like in our jobs, our relationships, everything.
Totally.
It's definitely a commentary on that.
And the way they show it visually, that really stood out to me too. The critique talks about that.
Oh, yeah.
The game arenas are so bright, so colorful,
Yeah.
almost childlike. And then you've got this super violent stuff happening.
That contrast is so jarring. I think that's what makes it so effective.
It's unsettling. You don't know what to expect.
Right. And then the dormitory where they keep all the players, that's like the opposite. So sterile, so unsettling.
Yeah, especially compared to the game sets, which are all, whimsical and stuff.
Yeah, it's like they're stripping away their individuality even before the games begin.
Right, right.
That visual juxtaposition really highlights that loss of humanity.
Even the costumes play into that.
Yeah.
Like those pink jumpsuits the guards wear.
Oh, yeah. That's not just a fashion statement.
Right. There's got to be something more to it.
Definitely. Think about the colors. Pink for the enforcers, green for the players.
Oh, I see. It's like a visual hierarchy.
Exactly. It immediately tells you who's in control. And then the masks, that adds another layer.
It's creepy, right? You can't even see their faces.
It dehumanizes them, turns them into just symbols of this oppressive system.
So it's like anyone could be behind those masks.
Exactly. Anyone could become a cog in that machine.
Scary thought.
It is. But what really sets Squid Game apart, I think, is the characters.
Totally.
Yeah.
You actually care about these people. You want to know what happens to them.
Right. You get invested in their stories, their motivations, and because of that, their choices, their alliances, their betrayals, all of that becomes so much more intense.
Yeah, it's not just some random people fighting to the death.
It's about the human cost, the moral compromises.
Like Gihun, the main character. He's
Mhm.
kind of a mess at first, Makes some selfish decisions.
Yeah, he's not your typical hero, that's for sure. He's flawed, relatable.
But as the game goes on, he has to confront those choices.
Yeah.
You see his humanity coming through.
And his transformation, it makes you think, right, what would I do in that situation?
Would I be able to hold on to my moral?
Exactly.
Then there's Sang-woo, his childhood friend. He goes down a much darker path.
He does. And it's a stark reminder of how desperation can corrupt.
Yeah, he starts out with good intentions, but
But the pressure, the stakes, it all gets to him. And it shows how even the best of us can be tempted.
it's like the show is constantly asking, what would you do?
What would you do to survive? It forces you to look inward.
Definitely. And the episode with the marble game, man, that one really got to me.
Oh, yeah. That one's a gut punch.
That's a kid's game, right. But seeing how it plays out in the show, it's devastating.
It's so emotionally charged. You see the characters forced to betray each other to make impossible decisions.
Knowing that one of them is going to die.
Right. And it's all based on this seemingly random game.
That's life, right? Sometimes it just throws your curveball.
Exactly. And the show uses those moments to expose the fragility of trust, the randomness of fate.
Yeah,
Even the strongest bonds can be broken when survival is on the line.
that's the sad truth. And the critique talks about how that episode, and others like it,
Hmm.
play into the pacing and structure of the whole show. It's not all just action, action, action.
It's not. There are these quieter moments, these moments of reflection that let the emotional weight sink in.
You have time to process what you've just seen.
Exactly. And those moments are crucial because they force us to confront the psychological toll on the players.
The guilt, the grief.
It's all there. And it makes the action sequences even more impactful because you understand what's at stake.
Not just their lives, but their souls.
Exactly. It's about their humanity.
And it's brilliantly done.
Absolutely. The show is a masterclass in balancing tension and release, action and reflection.
Now, the critique did mention one part that felt a little, too obvious.
Oh, okay. Which part?
The VIP subplot.
Ah, yeah. I see where they're coming from.
Like they're trying to show how the wealthy elite don't care about anyone else, right?
Yeah. It's about the exploitation of the vulnerable for entertainment.
But it's just so in your face, you know?
Hmm. I agree. I think the show is usually more subtle, letting us draw our own conclusions.
Yeah, it's like they're hitting us over the head with the message instead of letting the story speak for itself.
Right. I think it would have been more effective if they'd shown it rather than told it.
And then there's the subplot with Jun-ho, the cop who goes into the game to find his brother.
Right, right.
The critique pointed out that it feels kind of unfinished, like it just ends abruptly.
Yeah, his disappearance is very sudden. We don't really know what happens to him.
Maybe they're setting up a second season.
It's possible, or maybe it's intentional to show how unpredictable the game is.
Even those who try to expose it can get caught up in it.
That's a good point. It adds another layer to the whole critique of power and control.
But maybe the most interesting thing about Squid Game is its social commentary.
Definitely. It goes way beyond just being a gory spectacle.
It's about capitalism, inequality, what happens when people are pushed to their limits.
Yeah, it's like the games are this microcosm of society laid bare.
Stripped down to its rawest form. And you see how brutal competition can be.
You see how easily people can be dehumanized, reduced to numbers.
And speaking of dehumanization, we have to talk about Ali Abdul.
Oh, Ali.
Oh,
His story is heartbreaking.
he's the Pakistani migrant worker, and he gets taken advantage of so much.
His story really highlights the vulnerability of marginalized communities.
Yeah, it's like they prey on his kindness. And it just makes you think about how that happens in real life, too.
It does. Exploitation of immigrants, systemic barriers, all of that. Ali's story really brings those issues to the forefront.
It's like a punch in the gut, you know?
Yeah, it really gets to you because it's not just about him, it's about all the people who are in similar situations.
It makes you question the whole system. Like, who's responsible for creating a world where this kind of exploitation can happen?
Right. And are we all complicit in some way?
Heavy stuff to think about. But that's what makes this show so powerful. It goes beyond just, like, the surface level thrills.
Definitely. It forces you to confront these uncomfortable truths about society.
And the critique mentioned the symbolism in the show, too. Especially with the VIPs.
Oh, yeah. Those guys are interesting.
They're creepy, right?
Yeah, a little bit. But they represent something important, I think.
What do you mean?
They're the elite, right? The ones who benefit from the suffering of others.
Yeah, they're literally betting on people's lives.
Exactly. And they're so detached from it all. They see the games as entertainment.
It's like they don't even see the players as human.
Right. And that's a reflection of how those in power often view the less fortunate, I think.
It's a chilling thought,
Mm-hmm.
but the show does have some moments of hope, too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Like the relationship between Gi-hun and the old man, Oh Il-nam.
I love their friendship. It's so sweet.
It really is. It shows the power of human connection, even in the midst of all that darkness.
Yeah, even when they're fighting for their lives, they manage to find compassion and empathy for each other.
And it adds another layer to the story. It's not just about survival. It's about the bonds we form with others.
And how those bonds can sustain us, even in the toughest of times.
Exactly. Their story also brings in themes of like intergenerational trauma.
Yeah, Gehun trying to provide for his daughter, Ilnam carrying the weight of his past.
It's like their stories are connected, representing different sides of the same coin.
And it shows how these cycles of poverty and hardship can be so hard to break.
Definitely.
Now, one thing I did wonder about was the cop's storyline.
Jun-ho, right?
Yeah. The critique mentioned that it felt kind of unresolved.
I can see that. It does end pretty abruptly.
Like he just disappears.
Right, and we're left wondering what happened to him.
Maybe they're leaving it open for a second season.
Could be. Or maybe it's just to emphasize how unpredictable the game is.
Like even those who try to expose it can get swallowed up by it.
That's a really interesting interpretation.
It adds to the whole idea that the system is rigged, you know?
Yeah, it shows how power structures can silence dissent.
Even those who try to fight against it can become victims.
It's a pretty bleak outlook.
It is.
Yeah.
But it's also realistic, I think.
Yeah, definitely. The show doesn't shy away from showing us the harsh realities of the world.
But it also shows us the beauty of human connection, the moments of hope and resilience.
It's a complex show with a lot to say.
It really is. It's a masterclass in blending thrilling action with social commentary.
And it does it in a way that's both entertaining and thought-provoking.
You're on the edge of your seat the whole time, but you're also forced to confront some really big questions.
It's not just mindless entertainment, that's for sure.
And that's why it resonated with so many people, I think.
Definitely. It tapped into something universal about the human experience.
The desire for a better life, the fear of being trapped, the struggle
Yeah.
to survive.
All of that, yeah. And it did it in a way that was both specific to Korean culture and yet universal in its themes.
It's one of those shows that you want to talk about with others, to unpack all the layers.
It definitely sparks conversation.
And it makes you think about the world in a different way.
It does. It's a wake-up call in a lot of ways.
It's a reminder that we need to be aware of the systems that are in place, the injustices that are happening around us.
And it challenges us to think about what role we play in all of it.
You know, it really gets under your skin and makes you think about stuff, you know, like the world and how it works.
It definitely makes you think.
And one thing that hit me was how Squid Game gets at this, like, fear we all have about money, you know, economic disparity and, like, just surviving.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's a story that works anywhere, right? Because everyone worries about that stuff.
Yeah, it's a global story because everyone gets it. I mean, who doesn't worry about money and, like, just getting by?
Yeah, exactly. And the critique even mentioned how they like that the show, you know, it has all this dark stuff, but it's got those lighter moments too, the humor and hope.
Yeah, it's not all depressing.
Right, like it could have been just super bleak the whole time, but
Yeah, for
they
sure.
find ways to add in some humor.
It's like dark humor. It makes it easier to watch because the situation is so intense and...
Makes it more realistic too, right?
Yeah.
Because even in bad situations, people still laugh and stuff.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what makes it so interesting. It's not just some dystopia. It's like real, you know?
It shows the complexity of people, that even when things are rough, we can still find ways to be human.
Exactly. And the humor helps with that.
And it makes the characters more relatable. You see their strength, finding joy even when things are bad.
Like even when everything's falling apart, they're still finding ways to connect with each other, to have a little hope.
And that's what makes the show stick with you. It's not just a criticism. It's about the strength of people, too.
It's inspiring in a way.
It is. And that's what makes it better than just a regular thriller. It makes you think about yourself, your place in the world.
It stays with you.
Definitely.
So as we finish up this deep dive into Squid Game, what are some of the big things we should remember?
I think the biggest one is that it's not just a fun show, it's making a statement about the world, about how we treat each other.
Yeah, it's about inequality and, like you said, exploitation.
Yeah, it's showing us these systems that are messed up, these injustices, and it's like asking us, what are we going to do about it?
It's about the choices we make, right? And what happens when people feel like they have nothing left to lose.
Exactly. And it's also about the good stuff, the hope, the resilience.
Yeah, the things that keep us going.
Like how we can resist, how we connect, how we fight for something better.
And that's a powerful message.
It is.
So everyone listening, thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Squid Game.
Yeah, thanks for listening.
We hope you learned some things, thought about some things, and yeah, maybe even got a little freaked out.
It's a show that makes you feel things, for sure.
And remember, keep thinking about this stuff, keep challenging your own ideas, and find art that makes you see things. Ready for a deep dive? Today, we're taking a closer look at Squid Game.
Ooh, yeah, Squid Game.
I mean, everyone's seen it, right? But we're not talking about the plot or the characters, not
Right.
really. We're going deeper. We found these curiosities about Squid Game excerpts.
Interesting.
Yeah, and we're going to see what we can dig up, like what makes it tick. It's wild how a show that studios basically laughed out of the room ended up being like Netflix's biggest hit.
I know, it's crazy. You're a total underdog story.
Total.
I mean, the creator, Twang Dong-hyuk, spent like a decade trying to get it made.
A decade.
A decade. Studios thought it was too dark, too violent, too unrealistic, and then boom,
Right.
global phenomenon. Makes you wonder if any of us are sitting on the next Squid Game.
Right. Like, what idea have you given up on that could actually be the next big thing? Like, let's talk Dalgona candy.
Oh, yeah, the Dalgona challenge?
So that wasn't just some random game they threw in.
No, not at all.
Like, it actually has a lot of cultural weight in South Korea.
Big time. Dalgona candy is like pure nostalgia for a lot of Koreans. Like street vendors outside of schools, kids trying to perfectly carve out the shapes, winner gets a prize. I mean, the show brought back all those memories for people, and then suddenly it's a global trend. Everyone's trying to make Dalgona candy.
Oh, for sure. I saw it all over social media. I even tried it myself.
How'd it go?
More like a Dalgona disaster. I'm definitely not winning any prizes for my carving skills. But hey, at least I tried.
Effort counts.
It does. It does. Okay, but shifting gears a bit. Let's talk about those masks. You know, the circles, the triangles,
Yeah.
the squares. I mean, that's not exactly subtle symbolism, is it?
No subtlety there, but it's powerful, right?
Yeah, for sure.
It's actually a really clever reference to traditional Korean children's games. But in Squid Game, those shapes become like this visual hierarchy. Circles at the bottom, then triangles, then squares all the way up to the front man. It's chilling how they use something so simple to show how power works, even in this twisted life or death game.
And it's not just some fictional thing either, right? Like we see these same power structures everywhere in real life, in our jobs, in our governments. It's kind of a commentary on like the systems we all have to navigate.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like the show is holding up a mirror to society in a way. Another thing that really impressed me was Jung Ho Yeon's performance as Kang Se-bayak.
Oh, she was amazing.
She went all out learning the Hamgyong dialect, the one spoken in North Korea.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it just adds another layer of authenticity to her character. And I think it makes her performance even more impactful, especially for viewers who are familiar with the different Korean dialects.
That's incredible. Really speaks to her dedication to the role. It's like everything in the show, the games, the visuals, the acting, it's all carefully layered with meaning. I mean, no wonder it smashed all those viewership records. 111 million viewers.
111 million.
It's mind-blowing. I mean, beyond the cultural stuff and the social commentary, what do you think resonated with such a huge audience?
I think it's the anxieties, the universal ones. Debt, societal pressure, feeling trapped. The show takes these real fears that so many people have and puts them into this high-stakes thriller. The game itself is like a metaphor, but the emotions are real. And the fact that it was rejected for so long just makes the success that much more incredible. Something that seemed too dark, too niche, ends up being a global conversation.
Yeah, it really makes you think what other stories are out there just waiting to be discovered. Stories that challenge us and make us see the world differently.
Exactly. And maybe those stories are closer than we think. Maybe they're the ones we've dismissed as being too strange, too different. Squid Game is like a reminder that sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones we least expect.
That's a great point. Well, folks, it looks like we've reached the end of our Squid Game deep dive. I don't know about you, but I'm suddenly craving some Dalgona candy. And maybe rewatches in order, this time with a whole new perspective.
Sounds good to me.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, and we'll see you next time.
See you later.